There is a jar sitting on the shelf above my wood cook stove that is older than my marriage. Inside it is a gray, sticky batter that most folks would scrape straight into the trash. That batter has been alive on this mountain since before I was born. My mama Opal kept it going through winters when the road out of our holler was snowed shut for weeks at a time, and every Saturday of her life it raised bread that would pull the young'uns in off the porch before it was even out of the oven. No packet of store yeast, no bread machine, no $30 starter kit ordered off the internet. Just flour, water, and time. Today, I am going to show you how to make real sourdough bread the old Appalachian way, from a starter you build yourself for pennies, all the way to a loaf with a crust that crackles while it cools on the counter. And stay with me to the end, because when we get to the baking, I am going to tell you why Mama always kept that heavy iron lid on the pot for the first half of the bake. It is not to hold the heat in. It is one specific thing that lid does to the top of your loaf in the first 20 minutes, and it is the whole difference between bakery bread and a doorstop. I'm Roy Mullins. I'm 59 years old, and I live on the 40 acres at the head of a holler in eastern Kentucky where my people have farmed since the 1800s. I spent 22 years as an electrician in the coal mines before I came home to run the old home place full time. Everything I know in a kitchen came from my mama Opal, and she baked bread on this mountain every week for 60 years. Now let me tell you what put a burr under my saddle about this. A few weeks back, Brenda and I were at the grocery store in town, and I picked up one of those little bakery loaves of sourdough, $7. $7 for flour, water, and salt. And it was half the size of what comes out of my oven every Saturday. And when folks decide to make it themselves instead, they run into the other problem. The internet has turned sourdough bread into a college course. Digital scales that measure to the gram, hydration percentages, fancy proofing baskets, and $40 scoring knives. I have watched good, sensible people give up on homemade bread because somebody convinced them it takes a laboratory. It does not. Mama Opal raised bread every week for 60 years in a kitchen with no electricity, no scale, and no thermometer. She had a crock, a wooden spoon, a heavy iron pot with a lid, and 2 hands. That is the whole equipment list, and I will walk you through every step today, from building your starter to pulling a finished loaf out of the oven. And keep that iron lid in the back of your mind, because I promise to tell you what it does in those first 20 minutes, and that right there is the part that separates the folks whose bread turns out beautiful from the folks who quit. Now, everything I am about to teach you today comes straight out of the book me and Brenda put together, the Appalachian Homestead Manual. It is our family's old mountain systems written out plain, step by step. The garden, the pantry, and putting up, the root cellar, the smokehouse, the kitchen with the bread and the butter and the cast iron, the power, and the water. The methods my family has used for 3 generations to feed a household and run a home on almost nothing. Bread baking has its own place in the book, written out just like I'm teaching it today, and all together, those methods save our household better than $9,000 a year. The book is $17 right now, marked down from $47, and I will tell you the honest truth. If you bake bread instead of buying it for even 1 month, the book has already paid for itself. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, let's get you a starter going. A sourdough starter sounds mysterious, but it is nothing more than flour and water that has come alive. Wild yeast is floating in the air of your kitchen right now, and it is sitting on the flour itself. All you are doing is giving it a home. Get yourself a clean quart-sized mason jar. Put in 1 cup of flour. Plain unbleached all-purpose flour is what I use. Add half a cup of lukewarm water. Stir it into a thick paste with a wooden spoon. Cover the top of the jar with a piece of cloth and a rubber band. Never a tight lid, because that little colony needs to breathe. Set the jar somewhere warm in your kitchen, around 70 degrees, like the counter near the stove. Now, folks, pay attention here, because this is the part everybody gets wrong. If you are on city water, the chlorine in your tap water will kill a young starter dead before it ever gets going. It is put in there to kill small living things, and that is exactly what your starter is. So fill a pitcher with tap water and let it sit out on the counter overnight, uncovered, and the chlorine will leave on its own. Or use bottled spring water. Up here we are blessed with a spring, so I never had the problem, but I have heard from plenty of you who did. Let me say it once more, because it matters. Let city water sit out overnight before it ever touches your starter. Every day after that, you do one simple chore that takes 2 minutes. Pour off half the batter in the jar and throw it out. Then feed what is left with 1 cup of flour and half a cup of that rested water and stir. That is it. 1 cup of flour, half a cup of water every day. By day 2 or 3, you will see little bubbles like soda pop. By day 5, 6, or 7, that jar will be rising up and doubling itself a few hours after every feeding, and it will smell pleasantly sour like yogurt or cider. That smell is a good sign, not a bad one. So how do you know it is truly ready to raise bread? Mama judged it by eye, but there is an old test that never lies. A few hours after feeding, when the starter is puffed up and full of bubbles, drop a small spoonful of it into a glass of cool water. If it floats on top, it is full of gas and strong enough to lift a loaf. If it sinks to the bottom of the glass, it needs a few more days of feeding. Simple as that. And once your starter is alive, it will outlive your patience for it. Feed it on the counter if you bake every week, or keep it in the refrigerator and feed it once a week if you bake less. The jar above my stove has been going since Brenda and I were newlyweds. Now we make the dough, and I want you to notice something. There is not a scale anywhere in this recipe. Get a big mixing bowl. Put in 1 cup of your bubbly, active starter. Add 1½ cups of lukewarm water and stir it around until the water turns milky. Now add 4 cups of flour. That is 4 cups, and either all-purpose or bread flour will do fine. Add 2 teaspoons of salt. 2 teaspoons, no more, because too much salt slows the rise. Mix it all with your hand or a wooden spoon until there is no dry flour left. It will look shaggy and rough and sticky, and that is exactly right. If it is so wet it pours like batter, dust in a little more flour. Cover the bowl with a damp dish towel and walk away for 30 minutes. Here is where the old way saves your arms, because there is no kneading in this bread. None. My mama had a garden to hoe and hogs to feed, and she did not have 20 minutes to stand there pounding dough, so the mountain method lets time do the kneading. After that 30-minute rest, wet your hand, reach under one side of the dough, stretch it up, and fold it over the top. Turn the bowl a quarter turn and do it again, 4 times around, and you are done in under a minute. Cover it back up. Do that same little set of folds 3 or 4 times over the next 2 hours whenever you happen to walk past the bowl. Each round, you will feel the dough turn smoother and stronger under your hand, like it is coming to life, because it is. Then comes the easiest step in the whole recipe, which is going to bed. Cover the bowl and leave it out on the counter overnight, 8 to 12 hours in a cool kitchen. This long, slow rise is where sourdough gets its name and its flavor. The slower it rises, the more of that gentle tang builds up in the dough, which is why bread rushed with store yeast in 2 hours tastes like nothing at all. Patience is the ingredient they cannot sell you. And remember that iron lid I keep mentioning. Tomorrow morning is when you will finally see what it does, and I promise you the wait is worth it. Come morning, that dough should be near doubled, jiggly, and dotted with bubbles under the surface. Flour your counter and turn the dough out onto it. Pat it gently into a rough square. Then fold the 4 sides into the middle like you are wrapping a package. Flip it over so the smooth side faces up and cup your hands around it, dragging it toward you a few times to tighten the skin into a round ball. You do not need one of those fancy proofing baskets. Take a regular mixing bowl, line it with a clean dish towel, and rub a good handful of flour into the cloth. Set your dough ball in there upside down, seam facing up. Cover it and let it rise one more time, 1 to 2 hours, while your oven gets ready. And now, the part I promised you at the start. Put your cast iron Dutch oven in the oven, lid and all, and heat everything to 450 degrees Fahrenheit for a good 30 minutes. 450 degrees, and the pot goes in empty while it heats. When it is screaming hot, carefully take it out. Flip your dough into it seam side down and cut 1 long slash across the top with a sharp knife. Put the lid on and bake it. Lid on for 30 minutes. Here is why that lid matters, and it has nothing to do with holding heat. Your dough is nearly half water, and inside that sealed pot, all that water turns to steam in the first 20 minutes. That steam does 2 jobs at once. It keeps the skin of the loaf soft and stretchy so the bread can swell up to its full size before the crust hardens, and it melts the starch on the surface into a thin glaze that later bakes into that glossy, crackling, deep brown crust you see at the bakery. Bake that same dough in an open oven, and the dry heat sets the crust in the first few minutes. The loaf cannot rise another inch, and you get a pale, dense brick. Mama could not have told you the word starch, but she would tap that lid and say the bread has to sweat before it sets. Same truth, mountain words. After 30 minutes, take the lid off and bake another 15 to 20 minutes until the crust is a deep chestnut brown. Then the hard part. Let it cool on a rack for 1 full hour before you cut it. 1 full hour, because the inside is still finishing as it cools, and cutting early gums it up. And that little piece of know-how about the lid and the steam is 1 page out of the book me and Brenda put together, the Appalachian Homestead Manual. The whole book works just like today did. Plain steps. The why behind every one of them, covering the garden, the pantry, the root cellar, the smokehouse, the kitchen, the power, and the water. It is $17, down from $47. And when a single loaf at the store costs $7, that book earns its keep before the month is out. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So that is the whole road. Build a starter in a week with flour and rested water, mix by the cup, fold instead of knead, rise overnight, and bake it under a hot iron lid so the steam can do its work. Now tell me in the comments, did your mama or your papa have their own way of making bread? Put it down below, because those little family ways are exactly the kind of knowledge that gets lost when nobody writes them down. And I read every single one. And next time, I am going to show you how we keep fresh eggs from the hen house good for 8 months and longer without a refrigerator, using one white powder that costs about $4 at the farm store. Y'all take care now, and God bless.